there attention that demands your attention? What do I mean by that? Have you ever tried to make a decision in your life? There's just this little head up here that is constantly bothering you, and you're just not sure if you're doing the right thing or not. Most time we're just so sold out on doing what we need to do or what we like to do that we're not listening to that voice. But oftentimes when we want to, when it's probably a major decision, you start listening and you start wondering, why don't I have peace about this? The sad part is that most likely you will never know the outcome of the decision you take. Why? Because in truth, we don't know what would have happened if we would have taken another decision. But for the sake of this subject, let's focus on when we make a decision that doesn't quite come out with the outcome that we want to. In September 1990, I was arrested in Springfield, Missouri at a major horse show. About 11 o'clock in the afternoon, two gentlemen came and they were just dressed like cowboys. And they asked, "Are you Jorge Valdes?" Many times I had people ask me who Jorge Valdes was. And truth of the matter was that there was just something weird about them. Just didn't quite fit the cowboy that I was used to. And I said, "Who's asking?" And they say, "Federal Marshal, you're under arrest." I was shocked. I mean, I already had been retired from the cartel for almost 4 years. When I retired, there was no investigation. There had never been a wiretap on me. There was never a compromising picture. There was no indictments out there. So I thought definitely this was a mistake. Well, ended up being that the indictment was in Mobile, Alabama. Again, a place I had never been to. So it took about a day and a half, and they got me to Mobile, Alabama, where I met my attorney, Alan Ross. Alan Ross said, "Hey, they made up a case against you, and the only witness that they had killed himself last night while he was a government witness. He was still smuggling cocaine in a DEA airplane. So if you go in there and plead innocent, I think I'll get you out within a couple of days." I looked at Alan, and there was just something strange. A month later, I had determined to change my life and to start a new life. And somehow this little voice was telling me, you can't do that while you're still living of those millions and millions of dollars that you made, at the expense of so many people. I looked at Alan and I said, "Alan, here's the funny thing, is that here you are, a good Jew, telling me that I'm going home, but I sort of like committed my life to this other Jew that I really don't even know if he exists or not. But I know this thing in my heart. The truth is that if I don't come clean about my past, I just ain't never going to have peace in my life." But really, the process of coming to that decision was not that easy. Immediately through my brain, that little figure out there, the little voice kept saying, "Yeah, plead guilty. I mean, listen to your attorney. He loves you. You've known him for 20 so much years. You retire on your own. You have changed your life. You have children now. What would they do without you? Your parents told you over and over again that if you go back to prison, that you will go ahead and kill them." So there were so many reasons that voice was trying to convince me to go ahead and tell a lie and fight the government and continue to fight this forever and ever. But I just didn't have no peace about it. So what did I did? I really did what was not logical at all. I decided I wanted to plead guilty and start again. Now, it came with no promises, because I remember walking to the U.S. Attorney's office and they said to me, "Mr. Valdes, little money, lots of time. Lots of money, little time." It clearly came to my mind that what they wanted was my money. They just couldn't stand it that I had retired on my own. They never had a chance to catch me, and that I was living the life of a multimillionaire. I was already earning over $1 million legitimate. So I asked the prosecutor, "Do you know how much money I have?" She says, "No, I don't, but I know who does." And all of a sudden, all these federal agents walk in, and it was a task force that got to a point where they literally knew how much toilet paper I would consume. It was a member of the DEA, IRS, FBI, and Customs. So they laid it all out and they said, "We want it all." So here was the promise. The promise was none, because at that time the law had changed and the prosecutor really had no authority in the sentence that an individual get. Yeah, they could recommend it. So, but most of the time the recommendation comes based upon some serious cooperation where you've told on a lot of people. But I didn't tell on anyone, and there was no one to tell. By this time, the only person that had really worked with me that was in jail, he'd already pled guilty and gotten a life sentence in that case. So I looked at her and I stuttered, and then the little voice came back and said, "Don't do it, don't do it." My attorney, Alan Ross, jumped up and said, "Listen, what we ask is that if he pleads guilty and forfeits all his assets to you, what we ask is that you would recommend 10-year sentence, which would have been the violation of my parole, because I was admitting to dealing in drugs that they never caught me, didn't know when, while I was under parole. The U.S. attorney at that time, Judge Sessions, and his team got together and they say, look, we can recommend whatever we want, but we don't. This judge doesn't go by any recommendation. I said, at the end of the day, whatever I get, I get. I just need peace in my life. So, of course, we went in front of the judge and he said, Mr. Valdes, I reject any agreement you reach with the government now or ever, and it is every bit of my intention to sentence you to a life sentence. Young man, you will die in a federal prison. So think about that for a minute. How hard it is to think that you're not going to see your children grow up, your parents are going to die, you're not going to bury them, you're not going to be at your children's wedding, and one day, after all that goes by, they're going to come and pick up your body from a federal prison. Not an easy decision, but it was the prudent decision. Because if I wanted to change my life, I needed to come clean and I needed to start a brand new life. And that's what I did. It wasn't easy for the next 15, 20 years. I got the 10 years. I ended up doing 5. And then in prison, I decided I'm going to really change my life. And I studied. I got another degree in theology. And I began to change and become the person that I am today. Because I tell people, we are not defined by our past. We are defined by our future. And there is redemption if you just want and willing to pay the price. But sometimes making decisions that are costly are very, very difficult. But at the end of the day, you will know if it's the right decision when you have peace over that. So again, whenever you have those thoughts and when you're about to make a big decision in your life, that little voice is telling you differently than what you think, or that little voice is telling you to do something that just don't feel right, stop. Seek the counsel of those that know you the best and you respect. And then make the right decision. And then live by the consequences. Because at the end of the day, we really need to stop and consider the decisions we make in our lives. Because they don't only impact us, they impact everybody. God bless.